welcome back to the Honor Respect and to another edition of Raw Out of 10. And on the heels of the Backlash PLE that saw Gunther beat Pat McAfee, Lyra upset Becky Lynch, and Dominic Mysterio retain his IC title, Raw hit the Netflix airways with a jam-packed card and lots on it. And we kick things off with the return of CM Punk for the first time since his loss at WrestleMania 41, perpetuated by a shocking betrayal by Paul Heyman. CM Punk took to the squared circle to address the universe at the top of Raw. He addressed the betrayal and called out Heyman and eventually got the wise mind Seth Rollins and Von Breakker. A verbal exchange ensued before things turned physical. The heels attacked Punk, benefiting from a heel numbers advantage before Zayn made the save. That was not enough though, so G.U.C. made his presence felt and the babyfaces cleared the ring. A solid way to follow up the closing moments of last week's show. It again drew the battle lines and highlighted the disadvantage Rollins and co have. Might that mean there's another addition to the group for too long to the night with the babyfaces? Who knows? But yeah, it seemed likely. Before just 48 hours after costing Penta the IC title, Chad Gable battled the masked luchador in the singles competition. Gable controlled throughout the break, wearing Penta down past break. Though the popular babyface managed to come back, survive an ankle lock and deliver the Mexican Destroyer to secure the pinfall win. A solid match that was nowhere near as good as their contest on the night in Penta's debut in WWE. There's an adequate way to highlight the ongoing rivalry between the two, even if it didn't necessarily advance anything. And yeah, I just felt like maybe these two could have been capable of doing better. Didn't really advance anything, like I say, so I'm going to say a 5 out of 10. Next up, the World Tag Champions, The New Day, joined Cole and McAfee on commentary as the War Raiders battled the Creeds, with both teams jockeying for position in a hunt for a shot at the heels. The Creeds dominated the action, working over Ivar, heading into and coming out the break. A much needed tag to Eric Sparks' babyface comeback, but it was for naught as Kofi ran from commentary and knocked Ivar from the top rope. The heels utilised the Brutus Ball for the win just seconds later. This was a tough watch, not because there was anything wrong with the in-wearing work, because the fans were silent. There was a dedicated lack of energy from the crowd, and the result was a pedestrian bout that failed to hit in the way it should have done. Creatively, New Day interfering on behalf of the Creeds is interesting, and yeah, Eric and Ivar likely want revenge, so yeah, I'm intrigued to see where that goes, but yeah, just thought it could have been a bit better. 5 out of 10. Next up was Jey Uso hitting the ring to address fans just a few weeks before his match against Logan Paul. He talked up the match with a social media star, but unexpectedly was cut off by the former champ Gunther. He announced that he will challenge the winner of Uso v Paul on the June 9th episode of Raw from Phoenix. Unfazed by the news of Gunther's threats, Uso vowed to take out the former champion and stood towards closing segment. The creative team's did a great job portraying Uso as a champion, fending off Rollins and now Gunther, and of course Paul as well. And yeah, the more he fights, the crowd will love him. And then he was laid out backstage by Breakker, coming out to only portraying as that man even more. How Uso handles the pressure will be very interesting, but yeah, I'm intrigued by it. Moving on then to AJ Styles against Finn Balor. Two of the most influential wrestlers of the last 20 years did battle. Among the best of their era, they delivered a strong bout that generated chants of "this is awesome," a reaction both are very familiar with. The back and forth contest saw neither man grab the sustained advantage before Penta made his presence felt late, wiping out Carlito and JD McDonough at ringside and providing a distraction that allowed Styles to deliver the phenomenal 4-runs to win. This match was more than it should have been based on who was involved, but it was still a quality contest that saw the right man go over, and tensions were in the Judgment Day since the round power struggle. It'll be interesting to see how Balor responds to Mysterio without the gold, but yeah, I thought this was great stuff. 8 out of 10. Moving on then to Becky Lynch, and she was defiant after her loss at the pay-per-view, calling out the fans for betraying her and saying they were supposed to be in this together. She also issued a warning to the locker room, promising to hold down her peers while the fire burns more furiously than ever. This was the perfect way for Lynch to follow up her loss. First, she deflected blame for the loss of Valkyria like any good heel would. Then she reminded the locker room of how dangerous she is when activated, doesn't work well for her peers, and sets up for another epic run wherever the focus will be. And that led us to our main event, also in the women's division, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky versus Julia and Roxanne Perez. 4 of the best women's wrestlers in the world going off. The heels never looked out of the place against higher profile opponents. They dominated the action in the middle portion of the bout before a hot tag to the Women's World Champions Ripley sparked the comeback. The action broke down, but it was Ripley levelling Julia with a headbutt and a riptide that earned the babyfaces the victory. More of this, please. The women's division has been the most consistent part of WWE TV for the last 6 months at least, and it showed here. This was a stellar main event that continued the quality of last week's marquee match while furthering the story of Ripley chasing a title she never should have lost. Julia and Perez should probably not have left to the extent they are, but they are still high stakes matches, and yeah, they're only going to grow from it. So I've got no issue with it at all, really. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. And overall, Raw this week gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Raw continues to be more focused show coming at WrestleMania than it was going in. There's clearly vision and long-term creators. Slow builds like Ripley and Sky, Balor v Mysterio are much appreciated. Add in Seth Rollins' quest. And I think, yeah, at the moment we've got a really fun show. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Hey guys, that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.